What if the love of your life raised your son in silence, without a word of reproach, without ever seeking you out, just forging ahead, alone? And years later, fate forced you face to face with the living reflection of what you lost, mirrored in the eyes of a child who shares your face and has never heard your name. This is the story of Ethan, and it began the day he drove his son to school. He just didn't know it. That today, everything was about to change. Subscribe to the channel and like this video if you believe in second chances. The morning in Seabrook was crisp and unusually quiet for a Monday. The sun hadn't quite blazed over the harbor, but the town was already stirring. Since Scarlett's death, Ethan had reduced his life to essentials: minimal sleep, minimal food, maximum work. Everything else, social life, emotions, presence, was postponed, or perhaps canceled forever. But that day, his regular driver called out sick, a minor fever, nothing serious, but enough to put Ethan behind the wheel. Leo sat in the back, backpack slung over his shoulder, a small smile playing on his lips, pleased to have his father there. "It's been a long time since you drove me," the boy said, glancing sideways while fiddling with his sneaker laces. Ethan nodded, his eyes fixed on the road. "Yes, a long time. Are you dropping me at the door or walking me in?" "To the classroom," he heard himself answer, without thinking. He wondered why he'd said it. Maybe he just wanted to see where his son spent most of his days. Maybe he craved breathing air, not choked by silence and memory. Or maybe, and he'd never admit this, he was simply exhausted from pretending everything was under control. He parked, got out, and waited for Leo to adjust his backpack. The boy walked with a lightness Ethan envied. The way he smiled at other children, the easy greeting to the guards, everything about Leo was light. And that hurt, because Ethan knew deep down he couldn't return even half of that radiance. The school hallway was colorful, the sounds muted by walls covered in children's drawings and school notices. The faint scent of chalk and tempera paint conjured memories he didn't know he possessed. "It's here," Leo said, stopping before a door decorated with animal figures and colorful letters. Ethan offered a faint smile and turned the doorknob. As he opened it, time stopped. She was there. Ava? Her back was to him, her auburn hair pulled back in a simple bun, writing on the whiteboard. The handwriting was familiar, neat, firm, beautiful, and the feeling was immediate. Ethan's entire body tensed, his heart hammered as if it hadn't beaten properly in years. For a second, he thought it was a cruel coincidence, but then she turned around, and the world dissolved into a silence that hurt his ears. Her eyes, the exact same ones, found him as if they knew exactly where he would be, but they weren't ready to see. The marker dropped from her hand without a sound, and her mouth parted, trying to form a word that wouldn't come out. Ethan froze in the doorway. He wanted to say anything, everything, but he was paralyzed. Ava didn't move. She just stared at him, with an expression that mixed shock, contained pain, and a strength he recognized. The strength of someone who learned to keep going when all she wanted was to stop. The tension was finally broken by Leo. "Teacher Ava," he called, rushing to her and hugging her around the waist. She looked down. She knelt slowly and returned the embrace with a fragile smile. "Hello, sweetie. Good morning." Ethan felt an invisible but powerful noise break inside him. Her tone, the way she called his son sweetie. It hit him harder than he cared to admit. "This is my dad," Leo said, pointing back, oblivious to the atmosphere. "He came with me today because Mr. Evans was sick." She rose slowly. Her eyes never left his. "Ethan," she finally said, her voice a thin thread. He nodded, throat dry, hands wet. "Ava." She took a deep breath, She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. "How long?" "Years," he replied automatically. Leo looked at them both, then refocused on his backpack. "Teacher Ava is the best," he said, with the lightness of a child who doesn't feel the abysses between adults. "She understands me without me having to talk." Ethan looked at her again, and he saw it, in her eyes, on her face, in the slow rising and falling of her chest. She felt everything he felt too. The past was alive, the present was confusing, and a question floated between them, a question neither dared to voice. Ava turned back to the whiteboard, attempting to resume the interrupted motion. Ethan wanted to say he was surprised, that he didn't know, that it was good to see her. But no phrase felt right. Everything sounded too small compared to what stood there. The bell rang. Children rushed in, laughing, bringing too much life into a space that, seconds earlier, seemed frozen in time. Ava stepped away from Leo and looked at Ethan one last time. "It was good seeing you." Then she turned away. Ethan stood still. Children brushed past his leg, and one girl apologized. He didn't respond. He just stared at the spot where she had stood, the lingering scent of her perfume, the tone of her voice, the absence of explanation, all mixed in his chest. He left the classroom without remembering if he'd said goodbye to Leo. He walked the corridor like someone trying to wake from a dream he didn't want to remember, but couldn't forget. Outside, the world was the same. But inside, Ethan knew it. He had walked into that school to drop off his son. He walked out with the past burning in his hands. Interactive question and mid-story seat. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Not from insomnia, but from an excess of memories. Ava's face, the way she avoided touching him with words, her look, so firm yet begging for distance. Everything pulsed within him. Everything brought a question he didn't dare ask aloud. What would you have done in Ethan's place? Would you have confronted her immediately or waited to gather more information? Share your opinion in the comments. The next morning, even though his driver had recovered, Ethan insisted on taking Leo. He said he had enjoyed the drive. Was he lying? Maybe not entirely. There was something about that school that pulled him in, and he couldn't decide if it was curiosity, guilt, or something deeper, murkier and sadder. In the back seat, Leo chattered about drawings, games, and new friends. Ethan listened vaguely, but enough to understand there was someone special there. A friend. "Noah lent me his pencil case yesterday," the boy said, taking his lunch bag out of his backpack. "And he helped me finish the block castle. He's really good at it. Everyone likes Noah." The name echoed strangely. Familiar. Ethan just grunted an acknowledgement as he parked. The school was buzzing. Rushed mothers, running kids, teachers smiling with exhaustion already visible in their eyes. He walked with Leo to the colorful hallway, but something felt different. As if everything had a background noise. As if there was an emotional frequency only he could hear. Ava wasn't at the classroom door. He noticed immediately. Maybe she was running late. Maybe she was avoiding him. He knelt to kiss his son's forehead and say goodbye. That's when he heard running footsteps. "Mommy!" Ethan spun around instinctively. The word hit him like a punch to the gut. A small boy, perhaps Leo's age, was running down the hallway toward a figure who had just appeared through the classroom door. It was her. Ava. She knelt to receive the boy's embrace, and for an instant, everything disappeared around him. There were only the two of them. The gesture was natural, familiar, ancient, and then the boy turned around. It was only a second, but it was enough. Ethan felt his entire body freeze, as if he were looking into a strange mirror, not of the present, but of many years ago. That face was not unfamiliar. Blue eyes, intense, the same as his. Dark hair, fair skin, a defined jawline, and proud gaze, as if the world had always belonged to him. The boy smiled and walked straight toward Ethan, without hesitation. "You're Leo's dad, right?" Ethan blinked, his throat dry. He nodded slowly. "My mom says he's my soul brother." The sentence came lightly, as if it carried no weight. But Ethan felt the ground disappear. Ava stood behind, pale, her eyes fixed on him. There was a plea for silence in them, but also a subtle desperation, a panic only someone who guards a secret too big can feel. "And you are," Ethan managed to say, swallowing hard. "Noah. My name is Noah." He smiled, like someone who doesn't understand the earthquake he just caused. Ethan tried to return the smile. He couldn't. He only nodded, his stomach churning. Ava approached, took the boy's hand, and looked straight into Ethan's eyes. "Come on, Noah. Class is about to start." "Okay," the boy replied, still looking curiously at Ethan. She didn't say a word. She just looked at him, as if begging for understanding. Control. Time. Ethan stayed there. What? The hallway was spinning. He didn't know what to do with this. Noah. The name now had shape, voice, eyes, face, and that face. It was his. It was as if the past had created a replica and thrown it back in front of his eyes. He fled the school like someone running from a fire. He got into the car, locked the doors, and took a deep breath. But he couldn't. The air wouldn't come. He grabbed his phone, searched for some explanation. He wanted to call someone, his lawyer, his brother. Anyone who could look at him and say, "No, Ethan, you're imagining things." But the image was too vivid to be an illusion. He opened his phone's photo gallery, swiped through old pictures, from when he was younger, when Scarlett was still alive, when Leo was a baby. And then he paused on a forgotten image, a selfie, taken years ago, still with Ava. They were laughing, faces pressed close. And there, he saw what he hadn't wanted to see before. The eyes. Those eyes. He closed the gallery, dropped the phone on the seat, and rested his elbows on the steering wheel. Noah. The name resonated like a slow-beating drum in his chest. If that was true, and everything in him screamed yes, then someone had hidden an entire life from him. A life with his face. Don't miss out. Hit the bell icon to get notified for the next emotional chapter. The hero with no face. The following days were calm on the surface but intense beneath. Ethan, who used to enter the school with his body present and his heart far away, now walked with both in the same place. He no longer needed to pretend. He was there for Noah, for Leo, for Ava, but also for himself. It was like learning to walk again, approaching with care, speaking softly, existing without invading. He started sitting on the same bench near the playground. Sometimes he carried a children's book under his arm. Other times, juice or a coloring page. He never demanded attention. He simply showed up. And he stayed. Noah watched him from a distance, like testing the frequency of a new sound. An adult who didn't yell, didn't order, didn't explain too much. He just looked at him, as if Noah were the center of something important. And that was new. So new, it hurt. One day, without telling anyone, Ethan walked into a children's store downtown. He wandered the aisles like exploring an unknown territory. Toys, books, tiny clothes. He felt his throat constrict. Everything spoke of childhood, of lost time. Everything seemed to say, this space was yours, and you never even knew it. At the back of the store, he found what he was looking for. A photo album, cloth cover, light gray, untitled. He bought it. Paid in cash. At home, he took a pen. and in a firm hand wrote on the cover, "For the part of my life I can still get to know." The next day, he took Leo, as usual. But before his son entered, he said, "You go first. I'll catch up." Leo nodded, accustomed. Ethan waited. And when Noah appeared, alone, pencil case in hand and backpack slung over one shoulder, he took a deep breath, knelt down, and said without rehearsing, "Hi, Noah." The boy stopped, smiled faintly, shy but curious. "Hello." Ethan extended the package, without many words. "This is for you, if you want it." Noah took it, looked at the cover, then back at him. "What is it?" "A photo album, but it's empty." Noah frowned, confused. "Why?" "Because I want to start a collection of memories with you," Ethan replied, holding his gaze. "But only if you want to." Noah was silent. He held the album with both small hands, his eyes examining every corner, as if it were a map to a place he wasn't sure he wanted to enter yet. "And what are we going to put in it?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Everything that matters to us. Photos, drawings, candy wrappers if you want. It doesn't matter what. What matters is that it's ours." A silence that lasted seconds, but seemed to expand his entire chest. Then Noah nodded. "Okay." Ethan didn't move. The boy gave a small, genuine smile. A smile that said, "I accept." And that, by itself, was more than Ethan had hoped for. That night, Ethan took an empty picture frame from a drawer and placed the first drawing Noah had given him, the two of them riding bikes. Still faceless, but both smiling. The choice of now, deepening the conflict and climax. A few weeks later, something shifted. Noah and Leo were playing soccer with other children. The ball came in hard. Noah tried to defend and fell to his knees. The scream was immediate. Ethan ran without thinking. He arrived before any other adult. He knelt on the dirt ground, saw the thin stream of blood running down his skin. "Noah, look at me. It's okay. Breathe." The boy looked at him, eyes brimming with tears. The pain wasn't just from the cut. "If I cry, are you still going to stay?" Ethan felt the air vanish. He held the boy's face with both hands. "You can cry. I'm not going anywhere." Noah let the tears flow right there, without shame, without fear. Ethan pulled him into his chest, hugged him tight, felt the small body trembling against his. That's when Ava arrived, but she stopped a few feet away. She saw the scene, and she said nothing. Because in that moment, there was nothing to say. It was something that belonged only to those two. The following week, Noah handed Ethan an envelope. Inside, there was a new drawing. This time, the figures were facing forward. Ethan with a blue cap, Leo laughing beside him. Noah in the center, holding both their hands. In one corner of the page, a woman in a yellow dress with a book in her hand. Ava. Below, written in careful letters, "My family." Ethan folded the paper carefully. He tucked it into the inner pocket of his jacket, like someone guarding something that could save a life. At the next recess, the four of them sat together in a corner of the playground. A slightly crooked bench, under the shadow of a tree. Ethan opened a bag of popcorn and placed it in the center. Leo took a handful. Then Noah. Ava last. None of them talked about why they were there. It wasn't necessary. Their eyes said it all. Time was no longer the villain. The silence, which once screamed, was now companionship. Ethan didn't reconstruct what he lost, because some things can't be rebuilt. But for the first time, he built what he never had the chance to start. And sometimes, that is enough. And now, what would you do if you were in Ethan's shoes? If this story touched you in any way, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, share it with someone who needs to see it. Every time you share, you help the channel grow and motivate us to keep bringing real, intense and emotionally charged stories like this one. Because sometimes, the past doesn't return to claim you. It returns to give you a second chance. The quiet acceptance. The days that followed were marked by a subtle, deep change in the atmosphere at Seabrook Elementary. Ethan's presence was no longer a ghost from Ava's past or a casual visitor. He was a fixture. He never pushed, but he was always there, a silent guardian at the edges of the playground, a patient observer of Noah and Leo's easy brotherly friendship. One brisk Friday afternoon, Ethan was waiting outside the classroom. He held a thermos of hot cocoa, one for him and one for Leo, and a smaller one for Noah, just cocoa. No questions asked. Ava emerged from the room, looking tired, but softer than the first day. She caught his eye. For the first time, she walked towards him without the stiff shield she usually wore. "Thank you, Ethan," she said quietly, her eyes resting on the thermos in his hand. "You don't have to do this, you know." Ethan didn't look away. "I know, but I want to. Leo is happier. And Noah," he paused, searching for the right word. "Noah looks complete." Ava's eyes flickered, the mention of Noah's completeness hitting a nerve. "He is a wonderful boy, Ethan. He didn't lack anything." "He didn't," Ethan agreed quickly. "Because of you. You gave him everything I should have. Everything I lost the chance to give him." He held up the thermos meant for Noah. "This is just a late start, Ava. Nothing more." She let out a breath, a sound that held years of exhaustion. "He drew a new picture last night. You were in it. You were teaching them to skip stones at the beach. He showed me this morning." Ethan smiled, remembering the proud look on Noah's face. "It's already in the album. Can a missed beginning ever truly be made up for, or does the loss forever define the relationship? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video and share it if you believe in the power of forgiveness." The bell rang, and the sound broke the moment. Leo and Noah burst out, laughing, rushing toward the promise of cocoa. Ethan watched them together, one boy's eyes a replica of his own, the other's a mirror to his heart. The joy was intoxicating, but the unaddressed reality still lingered like a shadow. The late-night confession that evening, Ethan knew he couldn't wait any longer. The silence was becoming a lie again. He found Ava's number in his old contacts, the one she must have kept, perhaps for the same reason he kept hers. He sent a simple text. "I need to talk, not about the past, but about the future. For them. Can I come by?" A minute later, the reply came. Seabrook Pier. Bench 3. 10 minutes. The pier was cold and vast, the air smelling sharply of salt and the Atlantic. Ava was sitting on the specified bench, her hands tucked into the pockets of her jacket. She looked small against the dark expanse of the water. Ethan sat down, leaving a respectful distance between them. "I didn't want to meet at the school," Ava began, her voice low against the waves. "Too many eyes, too many memories." "I understand," Ethan said, his voice steady. "I know he's my son, Ava. I've known since I saw him smile that second day." She sighed, a sound of resignation rather than pain. "And what do you want to do with that knowledge, Ethan? Demand time. Demand rights. I raised him without your name on his birth certificate. I made that choice a long time ago. I'm not here to demand anything," Ethan countered, his voice firm but gentle. "I'm here to admit my failure. The day Vivian told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I chose duty over love. I chose the easy path, the expected one. And I ghosted you. I didn't give you the respect of an explanation, let alone the truth. I will carry that guilt forever." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "But you didn't just carry the pain of the breakup, Ava. You carried our child, alone. You never used him against me. You never looked for me for money or revenge. Why?" Ava looked out at the dark water, the lights of the distant lighthouse reflecting in her eyes. "Because I loved you, Ethan. and because I knew what it felt like to be a burden. Noah was never going to be that. He was my only good thing left. I wanted him to grow up knowing he was chosen, not an obligation. She finally turned to him, the raw honesty in her eyes unmistakable. If you had walked back into my life back then, when I was struggling, when I was tired, I would have given in. But you weren't ready, and I needed to be strong enough for him. Ethan felt a crushing weight lift, replaced by a deep sorrow. You were incredible. You are incredible. So what now? She asked. You've seen him. You've given him a small empty album. You've taught him to fly a kite. He loves you. Leo loves being his brother. What happens when the novelty wears off? What happens when it gets hard? Ethan looked her straight in the eye. It will be hard, but I'm not leaving again. I don't want to be the invisible hero in his life anymore. I want to be his dad, not to replace you, not to take him away, but to stand beside you. I want to be his second safe place. Ava, I need to know. Will you let me stay? Not as your partner, not yet, but as his father, learning to be present every single day. A new horizon. Meaningful ending and final CTAs. Ava sat there for a long moment. The only sound the rhythmic crashing of the waves against the pillars. She looked at Ethan, truly looked at him, searching for the man she had loved and the father she now saw. She saw the lines of exhaustion, the gray in his hair, the earnest plea in his eyes, a plea for a chance to do the right thing. Finally, she reached out, not to touch him, but to pick up a small, smooth stone from the bench and skip it toward the water. It bounced once, twice, 3 times before sinking. I won't deny Noah his father, she said, her voice soft but absolute. He deserves your name, Ethan. But you don't get a title. You get to work. You earn his trust back one day, one drawing, one skipped stone at a time. The past is what it is. We only get to choose the present. Ethan felt a genuine smile stretch across his face for the first time in years, a smile that reached his eyes and made them shine again. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a contract, a chance, a future. That is all I ever wanted, he whispered. They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, watching the lights on the pier fade and return. They had lost a decade to fear, duty, and silence. But sitting there, on that cold bench, looking out at the dark, vast ocean, they both knew they weren't alone anymore. They had 2 boys waiting, 2 mirrors of their past love, and a shared horizon of possibility. If this story inspired you to mend a broken relationship or chase a second chance, please leave a comment telling us about it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life emotional journeys. The future isn't written in the past. It's written in the choices we make today. Thank you for watching. Building the Bridge. The Sunday routine. The quiet agreement on the pier marked the start of a difficult but necessary phase. Integration. Ethan knew he had been given an opportunity, not a victory, and he approached it with caution and respect. He started joining the boys on Sundays, not every Sunday, but enough to establish a pattern. Their first unofficial family outing was to the Seabrook Marine Museum. Leo, with his structured, thoughtful nature, immediately gravitated towards the detailed ship models. Noah, who was more impulsive and artistic, was fascinated by the exhibit on deep-sea divers. Ethan used these moments not to teach, but to listen. He would kneel between them, letting their excitement guide the conversation. "Look, Dad, this one has a triple mast," Leo exclaimed, pointing to a replica. "Cool, but this diver suit is like a giant metal man," Noah countered, his blue eyes wide, a perfect mirror of Ethan's. "It is, buddy," Ethan said, running a hand over Noah's dark, soft hair. "Those suits needed to withstand incredible pressure. They had to be super strong to handle all that weight." Noah looked up at him, a simple, satisfied acknowledgement in his gaze. He didn't question the easy affection or the casual buddy. Ethan's presence was becoming a gentle, unshakable fact in his world. Ava watched them from a distance, near a display of antique maps. She wasn't avoiding them, but giving them space to build their own history. The sight of Ethan reaching instinctively for Noah, correcting his cap, or sharing a joke only Noah understood, was both a comfort and a deep, agonizing pain. It was the beautiful image of the family she had dreamed of, a dream she had deliberately buried. Later, while the boys were in the gift shop with a museum volunteer, Ethan approached Ava. "Thank you for today, Ava. It was easy." Ava nodded, her arms crossed. "They make it easy, Ethan. They connected the day they met. They have something elemental between them that you and I complicated." "I'm sorry I complicated it," he said simply. She looked at him then, her eyes heavy. "Apology accepted. But sorry doesn't pay the emotional bills, Ethan. You show up. That's the currency now. Every time you show up, you pay a small installment on the debt of time." "I will," he promised, "every time." The unspoken conversation. The boys, however, were already several steps ahead. One Tuesday, while Ethan was waiting in the car for Leo, he noticed the two of them walking out of the school gate together, deep in conversation. He rolled down the window, intending to wave. Noah stopped and looked intently at Leo. "Do you think it's weird?" Noah asked, picking at the strap of his backpack. "What's weird?" Leo replied, tilting his head. "That my mom is Teacher Ava and your dad is Mr. Ethan, and now we're always together." Noah paused. "It feels like a play where they forgot to tell us we were the main characters." Leo, ever the pragmatist, shrugged. "No, it's better. Now I have two best friends and almost a brother. And your mom is nice. She knows how to make that good blue paint." "Yeah, but my drawing of my family, the one with you and your dad and my mom." Noah hesitated, kicking a pebble. "The man in the drawing, he has your dad's face now, you know." Leo smiled, a knowing, slightly mischievous smile that was all scarlet. "I know, Noah. He's my dad. But maybe he can be our dad. Everyone says we look alike. It makes sense, right?" Noah was silent for a moment. Then he looked up at the car and saw Ethan watching. He gave a small, hesitant wave. Ethan's throat tightened. He realized the boys didn't need complicated explanations of biology or marriage. They just needed sense. And in their world, their shared face and shared time made perfect sense. Like this video if you think Leo is handling this whole situation like a champion. The first test. The first real test came a week later. Ethan received an urgent call from Ava. "Ethan, it's Ava. Noah has a fever, a bad one. He needs to go to the hospital. I'm on my way, but I need you to meet me there. Please." She didn't ask him to take Noah. She asked him to meet her. It was a request for support, for partnership, not delegation. Ethan arrived at Seabrook General Hospital 20 minutes later, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm. He found Ava in the pediatric waiting area, pale and worried, holding Noah's worn-out teddy bear. Noah was already being checked in. "He's okay. It's probably just a bad flu," Ava whispered, her voice tight with panic she couldn't hide. "He'll be fine," Ethan said, taking her hand. He didn't offer comfort. He offered presence. He let her squeeze his hand until her knuckles were white. A nurse called Ava's name. As they stood up, Ava paused, looking at Ethan. "They'll ask for medical history, and the father's name." This was it. The moment of official acknowledgement. "Just say it, Ava," Ethan said gently. "Tell them the truth." Ava looked at the floor, then at him. "It's been Noah Smith for 7 years, Ethan. It's okay, I'll come in with you." In the small, sterile room, under the glare of the hospital lights, the nurse asked the routine questions. Ava answered quickly, flawlessly, until the nurse asked, "Father's name?" Ava paused. Her eyes met Ethan's. He nodded slowly. She took a deep breath, and the sound of her voice saying his full name. "Ethan James Kingsley, aloud, in a formal, official setting, was the most profound sound either of them had heard in a decade. The nurse looked up, then down at the form. "Thank you. And Mr. Kingsley, you're here as—" Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, putting his hand on Ava's shoulder, a gesture of quiet protection that surprised them both. "I'm here as his father," Ethan said firmly, "and I'm not going anywhere." Ava looked up at him, and for the first time since that day in the classroom, her eyes weren't filled with pain or reservation. They were filled with an exhausted, hopeful peace. She didn't have to carry the weight alone anymore. Subscribe, like, and comment if you think Ethan finally made the right choice. We're almost at the end. Don't miss the final chapter. The Second Chance. Sunrise, the unspoken comfort. Noah's fever broke the next morning. It was a simple flu, but the hospital trip had been a profound experience. It had forced Ethan and Ava to officially acknowledge their bond under the pressure of necessity. Ethan stayed at the hospital until the early afternoon. He brought Leo after school, wanting the boys to share this moment of relief. Leo didn't ask complicated questions. He simply climbed onto the edge of Noah's bed, pulled out a tattered graphic novel, and started reading aloud, his voice steady and comforting. Ethan sat beside Ava, and for the first time, their shoulders occasionally brushed without awkwardness. They weren't discussing their past or their future. They were simply observing their sons. When it was time to leave, Noah, looking pale but alert, reached out a small hand. Ethan took it, and the contact was instantaneous, a connection of blood and a bond of shared worry. "Thanks for staying, Mr. Ethan," Noah whispered. "I told you, buddy," Ethan said, squeezing his hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere." As they walked out of the hospital, Ava spoke quietly. "The pediatrician, she asked about our relationship." Ethan stopped, bracing himself. "I told her we were figuring it out," Ava continued, meeting his gaze. "I told her you were a good man who had made a mistake, and now you were doing everything in your power to correct it. I told her you were Noah's father." "And the last name?" Ethan asked, his voice rough with emotion. Ava smiled faintly, a tired but genuine curve of her lips. "I told her that's up for discussion, in time. When Noah is ready. We won't rush that, Ethan. This isn't about titles for us. It's about truth for him." Ethan nodded, the immense relief almost painful. "It's perfect. That's more than fair." The picnic on the cliff 3 weeks later, the four of them drove to the Seabrook Cliffs, a secluded spot overlooking the ocean. It was Ethan's idea, a simple picnic to celebrate Noah's full recovery. They spread a blanket on the soft grass. Leo and Noah immediately ran off to the edge of the cliff to find the perfect stone for skipping, their laughter carried back on the sea breeze. Ethan unpacked a thermos of coffee for Ava and 2 bottles of sparkling juice for the boys. Ava watched him, the way he effortlessly knew which snacks the boys preferred, the way he spoke to Leo in a calm, intellectual tone, and to Noah with easy physical warmth. "You've adapted well," Ava noted, taking the coffee. "It looks natural." "It is natural," Ethan replied, sitting beside her. "This is the life I should have chosen. I chose the predictable one, and it broke me. You chose the brave one, and it saved you. You created something beautiful out of my absence, Ava. I'm just trying to be a worthy addition to your masterpiece." If you were Ava, after all the years of raising Noah alone, would you be able to trust Ethan fully again? Let us know in the comments. Trust is the hardest part of a second chance. Like this story, if you believe the greatest love is the one that chooses to rebuild, brick by brick. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn piece of paper, the drawing Noah had given him in the hospital, showing their family. "He put me in the center," Ethan observed softly, holding both their hands. "Noah sees the connection, Ethan. He feels the symmetry. That's the one thing that doesn't need healing, the brothers. They are the bridge we walk on. Ethan turned to her, the sun setting behind him, casting a golden halo around his head. I have one question left, Ava. The only one that truly matters now. Ava waited, her breath held. Do you see me staying? He asked, his voice low and sincere. When all the guilt is paid, when Noah is fully comfortable, and the hospital drama is over, do you still see me here, in this picture, with you? Ava looked out at the boys, who were running back, flushed with energy, holding handfuls of perfect skipping stones. She saw Leo laughing freely, and Noah smiling with his whole face. Ethan's face. She saw the quiet strength of the man beside her, a man who showed up, who listened, and who was committed to earning the trust he'd shattered. She turned back, a slow, profound smile gracing her lips. I don't know, Ethan, but for the first time in a very long time, I hope so. The unwritten ending, meaningful ending and final CTAs. The boys arrived, demanding an immediate skipping stone contest. Ava and Ethan stood up, their eyes meeting one last time. It wasn't a romantic declaration, but a promise of effort. They spent the next hour at the edge of the cliff, throwing stones that skipped across the orange water. Ethan was careful, giving both boys equal attention, making sure Leo's natural competitive edge didn't overshadow Noah's quiet determination. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, bathing the sky in fiery colors, the four of them stood side by side, watching the last golden flicker of light. They were not a traditional family, not yet. They were a work in progress, a second chance sunrise breaking over a shared, uncertain horizon. Ethan did not get his love back immediately, but he got his life back. He learned that love wasn't about the grand choice made in the past, but the small choices made every single day. He chose to stay. Ava chose to let him. And the two boys, the true masters of their destiny, simply chose to be brothers. Did you enjoy this journey of forgiveness and second chances? Then hit the bell icon to be notified of our next true story. What did you take away from Ethan and Ava's story? Let us know in the comments. Because sometimes the greatest love story isn't about finding the right person, but about choosing to become the right person, even when it's years too late.